Okay, welcome to Meet Mac Tuesday for March 25th. Um, oh, I'm getting a call from Mr. Fitzpatrick. I don't think I can
Ooh.
answer that right now. Does he want to come on the line? Hold on a second. Hello, John Mack speaking. Uh-oh, it's a recording. Sorry. Inviting to some meeting. I guess everybody got that. So let's start. Obviously, I need this disclaimer because I do have a lot of opinions, and I just want people to know that I'm totally responsible for this. Put me in jail if needed. The agenda, I think everybody's probably seen this. A lot of people are interested in this, what's happening with the sewer plant, about the pipeline fuel leak. I want to talk a little bit about the metal conversion project, which probably Jan Filios knows a lot about. Um, Pedestrian safety updates. There are several things happening there. The road paving program, the list of roads have been distributed to the Board of Supervisors. I can go over those with you. I attended this webinar on why our electricity bills are so high. I've been involved in trying to get a public mural in the township and talk a little bit about that and review what's happening at the latest Board of Supervisors meetings. The sewage treatment plant. There was a recent announcement that the NBCJMA, that stands for Newtown Borough. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for. It's the Sewer Authority, but voted 3-2. The three that voted for stop, quote unquote, the work were three representatives from the township, and the two who voted against it were the two representatives from the borough. The board is made up of three from the township and three from the borough. If that third borough person was there and voted against stopping, I don't know where we would be. I don't know quite how they resolve any kind of vote like that. But they recently came out with a notice on their website calling this a juncture, which led me to believe that I agree with Bill Everett that it's not over yet. It's a juncture, meaning to me that it's like a split in the road. You have a stop sign, doesn't mean you can't proceed after stopping. And so I just put up here two alternatives. Either you abandon any and all work, which is what the Board of Supervisors, Newtown Board of Supervisors, asked the sewer authority to do, or you proceed with the plan after all the brouhaha from the public, boils down, or however you want to express that. The other option is they express concern about the land, what's going to happen with the land, and a part of the vote was that Newtown should investigate what can be done with this land. Can it be donated to Newtown Township? The vote wasn't to say that the sewer authority would look into this possibility. The vote was to hand that off to the township, saying the township should look into the possibility. Now, whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. It all depends on how you interpret in the eminent domain law. I know, Bill, you're I have to leave early. Did you have any comment you wanted to make just regarding this?
Well, just that we want to make sure people are aware that it is just stopped and not canceled. The newspaper articles kind of can lead people to believe that it's over, and we don't feel that it's over. So our plan is really to monitor the sewer authority meetings very carefully and the data that they post with those meetings, to scrutinize that, to make sure that when they say they're going to stop work, that they're not spending any money towards the project. So that's the immediate effort, is to do that. The other thing we're doing is we have a really good technical team, and we're still gathering detailed facts about how they actually operate at the authority and at Bucks County, to make sure that the data that's feeding into the financials is the facts and accurate. That's another thing we're following up on.
Okay, Bill, if you don't know, it is and leads a group of citizens from Middletown and who have been opposing this. So they,
We're actually a steering committee of a number of us, and we work closely with Valerie and her team members from Newtown, across the board. So there's not one leader of the whole thing, John.
okay. Um, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Sunoco pipeline leak. I had a question. This is just showing a map of the red is the hazardous liquid pipeline that we're talking about. It does go through Newtown, and the issue that I was thinking about is, well, it leaked into the watershed, I guess you call it, or the groundwater up in Upper Makefield. Where does that groundwater go? Is it possible that the contaminants might find its way to the artesian wells that are used for Newtown water? Sunoco is being investigated by the Attorney General's office for violations of the state pollution laws, and I didn't want to get into that. Maybe Valerie is here, Valerie Mihalik. She went to uh, the meeting recently, and I think she did ask about the potential contamination in Newtown artesian wells. And I know that Sunoco is doing groundwater testing, but in Upper Makefield, and there was a interesting map showing the circles where they're testing, how far out they're testing, and I don't think it comes into Newtown. Valerie, did you want to say a couple of words about what you learned, if anything? Did I catch you off guard? You have to unmute yourself, I think. Can you do that?
You talking to me, John?
No, I'm talking to Valerie. Valerie,
Okay.
let me see if I could help you here.
How about now?
Yep, got it.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, John. So I attended the past couple of public meetings in Upper Makefield, and a couple of things. As far as the actual spill that they've been dealing with, there are 6 wells that are contaminated, and right now they are actually in the cleanup process. And similar to the map we put together for the stink zone for the Newtown sewer plant, Upper Makefield also had put together a map of residents that are within a mile and a half radius, of which they've done 400 tests of wells. There are 6 wells that they know of that are actually contaminated. And naturally, the focus is on the residents, particularly of the Mount Air community, who have been horribly, impacted by this. But I asked at the last meeting, has anyone looked into if the contamination and the spill which no one seems to know how this leak happened, which is concerning. There are 44 sleeves along this 75-year-old pipeline, and those 44 sleeves, braces, are for other leaks that have taken place over decades. And so the only way the residents in this community found out about this leak was this one person in particular in January smelled jet fuel in their well water. So my question was, since we don't have well waters predominantly in Newtown, how would we know if there was any kind of contamination to our water? And I will tell you, because they're so focused, understandably so, on the Mount Air community, I sort of got that deer in the headlights look, like we're not really thinking about Newtown right now. Now, I did speak to someone yesterday, one of the supervisors, who explained to me that the way the leak flows, that it would flow in the Mount Air community, it would flow down towards the Delaware River. So there's not a lot of concern that perhaps the leak that is existing in the Mount Air community could be impacting Newtown because it would be flowing in the opposite direction. That being said, what has been said at these meetings over and over again is the integrity of this 75-year-old pipeline, which Sunoco has not refurbished. It is not looking at replacing. As a matter of fact, when the pipeline was installed back in the 50s, the mindset was this pipeline would last forever. So it becomes, how would we in Newtown know if there is a leak? And no one seems to understand or know how we would know. The way they inspect leaks in the pipelines when someone reports a possible leak is they have drones that go into the pipeline and look. So there is also information out there, and this has not been, there is really no real conclusion on this just yet because they're still in the exploratory phase. In September of 2023, a resident in Upper Makefield reported a foul smell in their water. And Sunoco came out, and I think with the DEP, I might not be accurate on the DEP part, but I know Sunoco came out and they tested this resident's water, and they concluded that it was a bacteria issue in their well water. Then you have January of 2025 of this year, where a resident actually smelled jet fuel in their water in the Mount Air community, and they did their own test, and their own test showed that there was jet fuel in their water. So the concern has become, how long has this leak been going on for? Are we talking about a contained spill from January until now that they're in the process of cleaning up, which is very involved, and from what I'm told, is going to take a very long time to do? Or are we looking at more of a catastrophic spill that has been going on since September of 2023 until now? And one of the ways that we would know whether or not that was the situation that, let's say, Upper Makefield is dealing with would be by the amount of gallons that have been lost from when the fuel was put into the pipeline. And believe it or not, residents, when I was at these meetings, they have asked multiple times to Sunoco, what is that number? Is that number less than 100? Is that number a couple, over 500 gallons? And they don't have that answer yet. But that answer is going to be key in determining the size of the spill. Because again, I just want to add that in Upper Makefield with well water, the way residents have been able to detect is through the smell in their water. So does that make sense what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the update. I understand they're not going to have any more public meetings, so I don't know what other information you can get if they are being investigated by the Attorney General's office. Are they claiming they can't say anything until that's resolved?
There's also, some of the residents have lawsuits going on, individual lawsuits to Sunoco. And once that started, Sunoco did say at the last meeting that they were going to be limited in what they would be able to say because of the individual lawsuits that these homeowners are pursuing. But John, I have to say, I do think the supervisors need to get some kind of answer as to how do we know how safe the pipeline is? Because when you look at the map of the pipeline that you have up, it actually covers more of Newtown Township than it does Upper Makefield. It runs through the high school and the middle school. So every representative from our local, state to the federal level have asked Sunoco to shut the pipeline down and inspect the entire length of the pipeline. And just so you understand, the pipeline, the jet fuel flows from a refinery at the Philadelphia airport, and then it goes to Newark Airport. So that's a long stretch, right? With 44 braces on it from 44 leaks over decades. So how would we know until perhaps too much damage was done, right?
So,
How the pipeline is in this section, since we don't know what caused the leak in Upper Makefield.
so,
Yeah, I would
sorry,
interject.
Jan, go ahead, Jan.
This is energy transfer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sunoco and
Mhm.
is energy transfer are one and the same, and they have quite a reputation. Their Mariner East pipeline, their Mariner East 1 and 2, came from Ohio through Pittsburgh and on down through the main line on its way to Marcus Hook. And there were numerous violations, and the DEP at that time was supposedly underfunded and gave them about 5 or 6 slaps on the wrist, and then finally, got serious with them. But and this was when they were doing installation, so they knew very well that they were in violation. They it wasn't hadn't been even laid in yet. And the thing is, the U.S. is not going to use any of that fuel that goes to Marcus Hook, and it goes across the Atlantic. So I would say, I mean, unfortunately, we have an active governor, that is leaning into this a bit. And I would assume that if there's not that kind of pressure coming from elected officials and the DEP, that's the way to get some results, whatever they're going to be.
Okay, let's hold off on this. Let's go through the presentation. We could talk more about this after the presentation. So what I understand is that there should be shut down the pipeline until they should expect the pipeline even in Newtown. I know they came to Newtown and inspected a couple of areas and said there was no leaks, but let's move on and maybe we'll get back to this after the presentation if you don't mind. I got a few things to cover here, so I just want to get back to this. The next thing is the Meadow conversion project. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but this is required by the MS4 license, which we have just received. And in order to, it's a little complicated. We have two different systems for collecting this wastewater from our sewers versus rainwater runoff that goes into a separate system. And we need to control that water that gets eventually into the streams. And part of it is runoff from places like these parks that have grass rather than meadows that can help prevent excess water from flowing into the streams. And so that's what the meadow is supposed to be. And you can see on the left, the area marked off on red is what the Board of Supervisors a couple of years ago, I believe, approved for the plan in the Roberts Ridge Park, where the meadow is going to be. Originally, it was supposed to be in that yellow area, and that would have prevented a lot of people from taking advantage of the park, because that's where a lot of soccer activity, kids activities, egg hunts, and stuff like that occur. And we just had to change it. And on the right is what the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, this is the organization, the state authority that's gonna actually come in and do the work. They're gonna pay for everything. The only thing that the township has to do is water the system and maintain it once it's up. But their plan is slightly a little bit different. I hope you notice, I don't know if you noticed the difference. Up here, if you could see my pointer, this is where the children's play area is, playground. And in our plan, it stops short. This is a trail that goes to the playground, but in the plan from the DNCR, it goes across that path right adjacent to the playground. And the problem, as was mentioned at the recent Board of Supervisors meeting, is that Roundup is going to be used. The first step is to kill the turf in these areas, and Roundup is going to be used. Of course, they say this is necessary. It's the only way to get rid of the turf that's there, so it can be replaced with meadow grass and so on. And they're going to have all kinds of precautions. They're certified. They're going to mark it off. But I wanted to be sure that there was some signage at least. And I was concerned about, even with the signage and everything, why did they change the plan to get even closer to the playground? And I've asked that the township talk to DCNR and understand, well, why did they change even if slightly what we approved? So I don't know what the outcome of that is yet. The pedestrian safety, there's many issues here. We are looking at the Summit Trace crosswalk. This is from Newtown Gate Drive. This is the bypass, and these crosswalks were unsafe, according to a resident that came to the township to complain about it. And they asked the township to see if they can do a study, a traffic and pedestrian study, to see if what needs to be done to improve the safety. And our engineers did come out with a plan and made recommendations about uh, how to improve this. For example, it needs a pedestrian refuge on the bypass. The timing is not right. Enough time for people to get across, that sort of thing. I did talk to a member of the Newtown Gate Town Owners Association, and they had um, some more things that they thought needed to be done. And what happened is that this memorandum that our engineers put out went to PennDOT on the 14th of March, and hopefully the township will be following up with PennDOT regarding what's going to be going on with this. The other, oops, the other pedestrian improvement safety is for these two crosswalks, one at Tara Boulevard and Newtown Yardley Road, and another at Silo Drive and North Sycamore. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Silo Drive, which is near the Green Parrot. A person a couple of years ago was killed using the crosswalk. And what they're going to be installing there are these pedestrian push buttons that activate this flashing lights that are suspended on a pole across the street. Similarly, on Tara Boulevard, there'll be a similar flashing, pedestrian flashing, but not an overhead. So hopefully work will begin on this. The contractor, I was told, just let the township know that they're expecting starting construction in 3 to 4 weeks. So we're still waiting on that. Uh, this is the Newtown Yardley Road sidewalk, which some residents of Newtown Gate wanted to see this path here, which is part of the Newtown Trail. We're looking in towards the borough here, and you can see the borough has concrete sidewalks. And what was proposed is to convert this to concrete sidewalk with curbing. There's no curbing here, and that can allow cars to run. People are texting and driving at the same time. They might run into people in this area. And since we've improved the Newtown Trail, a lot more people may be using this. Whoops, whoops. Sorry, getting ahead of myself there. So the engineer was preparing 3 different scenarios because we had some extra money from another project. I won't get into detail about that right now. But we wanted to see if we can at least do some improvement here. Because this goes all the way to Terry Drive where the new bank is going to be. And we thought there should be at least a sidewalk from Tara Boulevard to connecting up to the sidewalk here at the borough. Um, Going back and forth, sorry. Got to jump to the road paving program. Is your road on this list? I don't know. I don't have to get into detail about all of these, but you can see that there's usually when you bid this out, you bid something that's the base bid. This is what you want. You really want this. These roads, and then there's the alternative bids, which if we have enough money, we might include some of the roads on the alternative bids. I get into some question about the money that's available. If you look at this, you can see the total costs are over $2 million, but we only have 936,000 in the budget, except that I was just notified that there's more money hanging around in special funds and from excess grants that we got that may be used to add to this, $936,000. I include on here the maps. And again, you don't have to look at all this now. I'm going to be distributing this presentation after the meeting, links to it and so on, that you can see this in detail. But just to look at the history of the road work in Newtown, this is my record of how many miles of roads that we've paved each year, and you can see that the average is 2.9, when really we need to pave at least 4 miles of roads just to maintain the current situation. So every year that we do less than 4 miles, the overall condition of our roads is, in my view, deteriorating. More and more roads are in a bad state. So I tried to put some numbers together and what I think might be the result of this program. and I'm still thinking we might only get another 2.1 miles of roads repaved this year. But as I said, there's some extra money that they're gonna fiddle with and try to find. And maybe there'll be more. The proposed mural project, I don't want to get into too much detail about this, but we had talked about this for a long time with our Human Relations Commission. I don't know if you know Barbara Simmons, who's a member of the NAACP Bucks County Executive Board. She's been working with I think the PA Department of the Justice Department and police departments of other townships to do these Love is Love murals where the police and local residents and children and uh, um, school children get together to do these murals under the direction of a professional artist. And one of our plans was to do the bridge over the bypass that connects to George School. And the police officer there, I forget his name, who was murdered at the St. Mary's Hospital a few years ago. I thought this bridge was named after him, but it's not, just a section of road there. And this bridge is actually owned by George School, which doesn't want us to do this mural uh, on their bridge, and they think it could be a problem with their students. I don't want to get into all the detail of that, but there's a committee formed that I'm part of to try to find out where else we can do a mural. If you have ideas, let us know. One idea is there's going to be this new bridge over the Newtown Creek at Frost Lane that connects the borough to the township. And I was thinking perhaps there could be panels that could be erected on that bridge, and then eventually these panels can be moved to other locations. So just stay tuned for that. The next thing is about the why is my electricity bill so high? I don't know about you, but for some reason, my electricity and gas bill really increased the last few months. I got a notice from Pico. They were kind of implying this has really nothing to do with the weather because they are, I think they said in the bill, it's been more or less like it was in the past year, and you better do something to conserve electricity. I don't know more what I can do. I put my thermostat down to 64 degrees at night. Um, I'm using my air fryer now instead of the oven, so not so much gas. But it's still pretty high. I don't know. And I've talked to other people, but I attended this webinar by Penn Future and conservation voters of Pennsylvania, which trying to promote more solar sources of energy to create electricity instead of fossil fuels. And that's why the rates are going up. If there were more solar power, it would be better to maintain lower rates. I'm not going to get into the detail of that, but there'll be links here to that webinar if people want to see it. The meeting coming up tomorrow, there's going to be these items on the agenda. The road program, firefighter commendations. I'll get into that in a minute. There's some zoning hearing board things and emergency services department report. But the interesting commendation is going to be awarding a recognizing two firefighters who were instrumental in helping save lives at a recent fire in February, Michael Bradshaw and Quentin Jones. They'll be there and they'll be handing out these commendation plaques, I believe they are. So that should be interesting. The other thing we did was we nixed TD Bank. I don't know if you know, but at least one board member refused to pay bills because he was protesting that TD Bank handles our financial situation, and it's a foreign bank. I didn't know that. It's actually a Canadian bank, which, I mean, it may become part of the 51st state, who knows? But in any case, we have replaced it with Penn Central Bank eventually. So no longer will TD Bank be our bank. And the last slide I have is I just wanted to say that I support Ukraine. And at the last meeting, after Pledge Allegiance to the American flag, I just acknowledged that the township some time ago voted in April 13th, 2022, to divest itself its pension funds from Russian stock. So at that point, we did support Ukraine, and I hope we still do. And that's the end of my presentation. So I will open it up for any discussion and questions that people may have.
Oh, I have a comment about Roberts Bridge. Um, it was decided not to use Roundup, and they are using,
Who decided that?
well, there was a lot of resistance from the Friends community. And they went to supervisors meetings and complained.
When did they?
And I oh, this, I don't know what month it was. I mean, it was before, it would have been last year. It would have been in 2002,
Well,
4.
that has no bearing on DCNR. We don't have control over that. And
Oh, you're talking about I'm sorry, the Meadow.
oh, what are you
Okay.
talking about? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the pollinator garden that went in.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The pollinator
I'm
guy.
sorry, you're right. Yeah, DCNR, uh, yeah, that's their regular practice.
Yeah, the pollinator garden is what the township is doing. Alan Snyder and the Environmental Advisory Council have designed that, and I guess they couldn't plant last year because it was too dry. Is that the problem? That was the problem, right?
Yeah.
So they
So
got to start over.
has anyone spoken to DCNR?
Well, I asked the engineer, I asked the township to do that, and they said they would. And I haven't heard anything yet about that. So I have to follow up when I get back to the meeting tomorrow and ask about that. So I spoke to a person who's an expert at DCNR. They said it's not possible to use what they called agricultural vinegar, which was used
Right.
at the area for the flower garden.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of reasons. They said it changes the acidity of the soil, and it's just one application does not do a good enough job. And other reasons, which, not being an expert in the environmental implications, I couldn't argue with. So I just told them, I said, uh, can you just make sure they want to work with the Environmental Advisory Council to, number one, get the word out about what they're doing, how they're doing it, the precautions they're taking, etc. So I think the Environmental Advisory Council should talk to DCNR and get that going, get that collaboration going, and understand why they have to use Roundup, how they're going to use Roundup, how they're going to cordon it off, how they're going to put signs up. Because I don't care if you put a rope around the whole area, you know, people don't know, dogs don't know, I don't know, people have to know exactly what's going on there and why it's necessary and when is it going to, be in effect, and how they should avoid it is, what I'm thinking. Any other thoughts on that? No? Okay.
Well, yeah, I think at the pollinator garden, they needed to do 2 applications of the vinegar. The landscape designer thought that it would not have a lasting effect as far as acidity goes, but that's her opinion. I don't really have any experience myself.
I don't know much about it. I gather that she might have used this before, so she has some experience with it, and it would work, I assume, well enough in a small area. And again, that's Alan Snyder at the meeting when I brought this up about Roundup. I also mentioned that the township uses Roundup. And they use Roundup not in large areas like this, but around trees and so on. And a resident complained to me about she saw them using Roundup near the stands where baseball is being played. And so
Yeah.
I talked to Joe Scavone about this, and I said, maybe you should have signage there. I know your people are qualified to use Roundup, but if they're going to use it, at least put signage that Roundup has been applied to this area. He had no objection to that, although Alan Snyder now is saying that maybe we should get the township to stop from using Roundup and use maybe this agricultural vinegar around trees. Again, I was told that Roundup does not spread out, or it has a specific way of killing these plants so that you could put it by a tree. It's not going to hurt the roots of the trees. Somehow uh, again, I'm not an expert, but Roundup works differently than agricultural vinegar, which seems to be more uncontrollable in a sense about how it kills versus Roundup. I don't know if that's true or not, but if you're going to put something by other plants that you want to prevent from weeds growing around other plants that you want to maintain, you got to be sure you don't kill the other plants.
Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, vinegar would not necessarily penetrate into the root zone, whereas Roundup is a systemic and it would absolutely go into the root zone and kill the whole plant. It also has a thought at this point in time to have a short life, so that you're not expected to be contaminating, in any sense of the word. It's not going to creep down into the watershed or something like that.
Right.
But the other thing though, if the DCNR had to use the vinegar, there certainly would be a way to neutralize the acidity. And I'm not sure exactly what they would use, but changing the pH of soil is something that can be done.
Right.
It would cost
So,
more.
Jen, you're still on the Environmental Advisory Council, right?
Yeah,
You should bring this up at the Environmental Advisory Council, in my opinion, to start the negotiating or the meeting with DCNR people to see how you're going to work together and if there's anything that, needs to be done, or they seem to want to work with the Environmental Advisory Council mainly to make sure the public is aware of what's going on and to make sure that they understand the dangers or lack of dangers or whatever it is. They don't want it to be a problem with residents.
a
And
lot of the
I'm not
danger
trying
of,
to make a problem with residents.
yeah,
I'm just saying that people should be
right.
aware of what's going on.
A lot of the dangers associated with Roundup is that there's uh is the huge amounts of spraying that is involved in agricultural settings. And this could go, this if one farm is using it, there was a lawsuit by the next door farm because the wind carries any spray and then,
Right.
it
Okay.
affects. So these are very, very large scale situations where you have some workers that can be immigrants and they don't have, adequate they're not wearing masks or they're not wearing clothing that they're protecting themselves.
Well,
So there's a lot of ins and
according
outs.
according to DCNR, they have to be trained by the Department of Agriculture about how to use Roundup. And I'm sure they have all these precautions. And for example, in the township, Joe Scavone told me there are only two people who have such training and who are qualified to apply Roundup. So hopefully it's being done in the right way. My only issue is that there needs to be signage about when Roundup is used. I know
Right.
that they come in and treat my lawn even with fertilizer. Weed Man puts up a sign. But I know that's advertising, but you know what I'm saying? People are aware that there's been maybe some chemical put on the grass where they're walking. Anyway, anybody else have some questions, comments?
John, it's Valerie. I
Yeah,
just wanted to just talk about the two firemen that you're honoring tomorrow night and how they were part of the paid firemen staff.
right.
And it speaks to the whole timing because that house was in Lower Makefield, so it wasn't in Newtown Township. And they apparently were at Francisco's. Um, I'm trying to think of what the street is over there, but it's not far from Dillington, Lower Dillington Road. Um, the fact that they got there on the scene as quickly as they did is because they have Chief was explaining to me how they have a specific vehicle that they drive around in, and what you see them wearing is actually all they had with them. So I just wanted to add to that because it's not even like they had the actual fire truck there. They were responding from, being at a restaurant and, trying to locate the homeowner who went inside for her pets. So, again, kudos to these two incredibly brave firemen. But again, it speaks to the whole importance of having paid firefighters within our fire department.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with that because I know I guess we hired about three new full-time firefighters a year and a half ago, because we got a grant from the state, but that covers their salaries only for 3 years. So maybe and that's we even needed more fire. We need more paid firemen. And after that money runs out, uh, well, where are we going to get the money to continue to pay for the extra firemen that we hired, basically? So that will become an issue. After I leave, my term is over at the end of this year. Uh, so it's not going to be this year. And I don't even know if it's going to be an issue next year, but we'll see.
A friend of mine is a fire marshal in Lower Makefield. Lower Makefield does not have any paid firefighters, but the issue throughout all of the fire departments is recruitment. It's very difficult for them to, recruit people anymore. So it's a real problem. So I
Right.
just want to say I'm grateful that we live in a township, even though again, this house was in Lower Makefield. Had we not, being the town next door, had paid firemen, the woman that was in the house, I'm sure would have died because there would have been no one there to have gone in to save her.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there's other issues with the fire department. We had a study, as you might know, that was critical of the building that we have at the Municipal Drive. The chief, the fire chief, Chief Forsyth, has constantly come into meetings, telling us that this building is no longer really adequate. If you're going to hire more firefighters, it's not adequate. So we're going to have to build a new building, and the location from that study, the conclusion was this was not a proper location. It wasn't centrally located as far as the township was concerned, and it needed a better location. Just between us folks here, it was mentioned that, where the ball field is on South Sycamore Street, might be moved to where Toll Brothers is building those buildings on Twining Bridge Road. They donated 100 acres to the township. The talk was maybe that ball field could be moved to that location, and the location where the current ball field is might be a location for a future fire station that's more up to modern standards. And I don't know all the details about that, but that's another issue in the future that is going to impact our firefighting ability, I think. Especially if you have more development than like the 45 houses that Toll Brothers is going to be building and so on. A lot of things going to be happening, Valerie, in the future. Are you ready for that?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. It's actually about the jointure. I heard a rumor, so I don't know if it's true or not, that Newtown might want to exit the jointure. And if you know anything about that, would it be
No, I
something?
mean, I think that's been talked about in the past. I haven't heard anything about that recently.
Okay,
It's like the US versus Europe, I guess. We've been screwed over by the jointure and they haven't given anything back to us. I don't know. But
okay.
I,
So,
I I'm not going to be going to any more jointure meetings. This just really doesn't accomplish very much as far as I'm concerned. I'm really a little bit confused about what's under the jointure control and what's under township control. Like, for example, signage. Are you aware of the signage issue? I mean, there are many stores in the area where the farmers market is, like the bookstore. In Newtown, you can't have more than two, more than one, you can't have more than one sign identifying the store. Okay. So you can't have these signs in
um,
the windows that you have like at many places. And the the code officer sent out letters to 17 store owners saying you have to get rid of all your signs in the windows except for signs like open, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this something that's under control of the jointure? Because I brought this up at a jointure meeting and they say we don't care. I mean, it's not something that's impacts us because they don't have very many businesses to deal with. And it's a thing that's not enforced equally because there are many stores over there that have completely ignored the warning letters. And I was trying to say, well, you got to give them like a grandfather clause or something. They've had signs in the windows for years. To get that, you have to go through the jointure. Forget about it. Like they say in Brooklyn, forget about it. It's not ever gonna happen if you have to go through the jointure. That's my opinion. And that's probably the reason why a lot of people think we shouldn't be in the jointure. We don't have control over our own regulations like we should. Anyway.
Okay.
Are you all gonna attend my comedy show on Thursday? Did I send out invitations? It's on my website. It's at Poco's. You know, anybody been at Poco's in Doylestown? They have a comedy club upstairs. There's gonna be I think 11 or 12 of us who've taken a stand-up comedy class. And then there's going to be a, noted comedian who I don't know who it is, but there'll be a professionals there also. So
So John, give us a sample of one of your best jokes.
okay, I'll give
Please
you an
begin.
example. It's going to be clean. It's not going to be dirty. When when I first moved to Newtown, my relatives would come into town from New York, and the first thing they would see are the cows, and they started calling this Moo Town, okay? And then right now there are no more cows, but you know what? There's plenty of chicken. You know how many chicken stores there are in Newtown? And I named them. What are they? Yeah, I'll name them. There's uh Dovebird chicken, Love and Honey fried chicken, Zook's barbecue chicken, Skip's famous Lancaster fried chicken. And then
Yeah.
I get into, you know, Bubba from Forrest Gump spouting off about different ways to cook shrimp. You know how many ways there are to cook chicken? I don't
Yeah.
have the list in front of me. I didn't memorize my routine yet, but that's the kind of stuff I'm going to get into.
John, could we just get him to lay a few more eggs before they cook them?
No, these are not live chickens, but like they were cows. All right, look, it's past 8 o'clock, getting near my bedtime. I went on another joke. I'm old and retired, perfect qualifications for a Newtown supervisor. Sorry, Valerie. Not saying anything about you being old and retired.
John, can I just ask a question about junction? Is it jointure or juncture?
It's jointure.
Jointure. How does Newtown benefit from it?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know how it all started. It's the only one in existence anywhere in the world. I mean, in Pennsylvania anyway. Uh, and I don't know how it got started. I mean, the borough used to be a member and they were smart enough to get out of it. Um, uh, Frankly, I don't know how. I guess because what they keep on saying, well, you don't have to have a quarry. You know, developers come into town and say, you don't have a use for this particular type of development, say a center garage apartment building. You know, they come up with these crazy uses so they're saying our regulations are unconstitutional. And sometimes the first thing that they do is they sue the township. So the since it's jointure regulations or whatever you call them, they have to share the responsibility of defending them. So we don't
Yeah.
pay all the costs. So that's probably maybe one of the ways in which we benefit from having a jointure.
Yeah, and I think there was a regional approach to zoning that some of these areas were better preserved as open space. I know Upper Makefield loves to preserve open space, and parts of Ricetown has a lot of limestone and it's not easily built on. Um, so those were two townships that were looked to have, preserved that. And Newtown was Unfortunately, the one was township that was supposed to bear the burden of a lot of development.
But at least we don't have to have a quarry because the
We don't
joint
have to have
is a
a
quarry.
right. Right.
So that's been the defense. Oh, you want to get out of the jointure? Well, maybe you're going to have a quarry. We'd have to develop a whole new set of uses that covers everything. But having a jointure means all of this stuff is covered amongst the three different townships. Puts less
Yeah.
of a burden on one particular township to have every type of use uh, allowable. I mean, even though we probably couldn't have a quarry in Newtown, there's nothing under the ground here except jet fuel. Who knows? But okay, if that's it,
Thank you.
I'm out of here.